deconverted man here, and I'm joined by a floating M. Mark, there's absolutely no way I'm going to pronounce your last name. Mark is here. I'm going to give it a try. When Gary.
Yeah, almost there. It's Wandery.
Exactly what I said. All right. No,
Yes, exactly.
welcome to the deconverted man insanity of my life that I do here on YouTube. Thanks for joining me. And Mark, you were in one of my random live streams where I was saying things about God and being the jaded skeptic that I am, and you were like, "Oh, I got to talk to you because I got to fix all your issues." So let's start at the big question and the most important question of, and this is a simple question. I'm sure you've got the answer for it. Of what is God? And I have a follow up question to that. But let's start with what is God?
Okay, thank you for having me. Um, to answer that question, it is actually practically impossible. We cannot describe what God is because, God is not a being amongst many beings. It's not like we have a tree, we have the deconverted man, we have Mark, we have a lamppost, and there is God. There isn't what is God I can describe or anyone can describe. But for us to have just a surface level understanding of Him, we can just say He is our creator, the architect of our existence, and God is, well, everything. And yeah, but in essence, we cannot describe God like the way we can poke something in nature and study it and understand it and say, yeah, this is what God is and this is how we can describe Him and all that. Yeah, God is just our creator and He's the one who is responsible for everything and anything we see and we don't see.
Okay, and then the follow up, responsible for everything we see, taking notes. um,
Okay.
what would be the methodology that you utilize to arrive at your conclusion in regards to God? So what do what would be your method there? And if you want me to extrapolate what I mean by methodology, I will.
So to arrive to the conclusion that God exists,
No, how did you arrive at the conclusion that God is as you described it?
oh, okay, well, everything hinges on faith when it comes to God, doesn't it? And when everything from the beginning of the journey, when you are trying to identify if God exists in the first place, it is a leap of faith. So, yes, it is a leap of faith. And then throughout that journey, that faith fueled journey, God reveals Himself to you, and you get to realize just how much about Him you cannot understand or fathom. So I would say, yes, that's my methodology. I don't know if I have answered your question, but it's God who reveals Himself to us. And as He does so, we get to realize how incapable we are of completely understanding Him. That's how we conclude that, we cannot really dissect Him.
Mm.
I don't know if I've answered your question.
No. I mean, your answers are your answers, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not gonna, I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to understand what your position is and why you hold it. Um,
Mhm.
to be fair, I'm a skeptic. I used to be a believer in a God, and
Mhm.
I deconverted because I couldn't find substantial evidence or reasons to continue holding to that belief. And
Mhm.
so my methodology that I adopted was somewhat of the empirical methodology to some degree, where I look for empirical evidence, repeatable tests, or a sound argument. And when dealing with this concept of God, I've interviewed different theists about it from time to time and asked them, what they believe and why. And I've heard everything from God is the number zero, but also not the number zero, but God is zero. I don't.
Mhm.
That's the best one that still to this day I'm like, wow, that was insane. Um, this guy, he was like, yeah, God is like zero, and I'm like, he's like zero or he is zero. He's like, oh no, I was like, the number zero, no, zero. I'm like, what? It was all okay, whatever. I don't know. I've heard, so yeah, it is kind of funny. If I can find that conversation you want to listen to it, I'll link it to you. But I've heard everything that God is or isn't by various people. And your second thing, where you said it's all about faith, um, the the skeptical epistemology, of course, now you probably already know the word, but just for anybody out there that might not know what epistemology is, it's the system that we use to determine what is real. So that's a good question, like, how do I decide that this thing is true or real? Somebody's like trying to sell me something, and I'm like, is this real? Is this a good deal? Or are they trying to scam me? So what methodology I'm going to use to get to, if not the truth, at least close enough to say, okay, I'll buy that. That's, like, should I get this injection? Should I, or, was that news article correct, or should I doubt it? Things like this. This is a very important question for us to know how to get to the truth in the first place. So our epistemology very much must be one that we can apply across our lives to get to the truth. Otherwise, we're shooting in the dark, and we don't know that we're necessarily going to hit the target, or even if there is a target. And it seems to me, in regards to faith, that this is essentially, you are throwing a dart, if you will, blindfolded, and you don't even know if there is a target to hit, and you don't even know if you have a dart because you're blindfolded. So, but you think that there's a dart, you think that there's a dartboard, and you think that there's something to throw the dart at. Whether there is or isn't, you don't have any idea. You're just hoping that you're right. And I don't see that as a valid epistemology to get to the truth, because you might hit something on accident and be right accidentally, but you would never even know that you were right because you were blind in the faith. You just believed it. And anyone can believe just anything that's out there, even that God is the number zero and or is zero, but also not, because why not? You just believe it by faith. So, having said all that, when examining faith, do you find anything a problem with what I've said about this?
Um, yes, there is a problem, and the problem. Okay, let me put it this way. You see, now that's the problem in quotes with God.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't any empirical evidence or any kind of epistemology that you can use to, definitely have a conclusion that God is real and God exists. And the way you described it is actually the truth, because I'm a Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And in the church, the greatest virtue is humility. And the way you described it, you are blindfolded and throwing darts in the dark. That's exactly how it is. Because if you are to come to a higher understanding of God, you have to completely surrender to Him and realize just how little you know and are capable of knowing. You see? So it, it might sound, you see, now the way I see it, it's really a problem with pride, because it's not, I am not a Catholic because, yeah, okay, my family is Catholic and all that, but there was a time that I did not believe in God. I fell i fell from the church, and I was actually grappling with the arguments that you are presenting. But later on, when I came back, that is what I realized. And all this is by God's design. You cannot approach God with that kind of, mentality, that I need proof the same way I can prove to you maybe gravity exists, or if you put your hand on a fire, you'll get
Mm-hmm.
cooked. No, 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 no. That never works.
Mm. Well, um, within that idea,
Mhm.
couldn't anyone claim that God is or isn't anything?
Well, yes, that is true, but um, like in the church, there is the church is very big on one thing, and that is intention. If you are out to find the truth, and this is what I even advise people that I talk to, and that is where my personal journey started. If you are just out to find the truth, not to argue with it, or not to, like, here I am from Africa, and
Mm-hmm.
here many churches, they grab people with the promise that, God is going to make you rich, God is going to make you successful, is going to make you, I don't know, more handsome and get a better wife or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
No, 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 no. If your intention is to find God, He will always lead you to Him. And people will claim those things because you never know, if someone's intention is not right, they can claim
Mm-hmm.
whatever they want. You see?
Right. Right.
But if
So,
your intention is to find Him, He will always draw you to Him.
but how do you know? How do you know that that idea is true? That if your intention is to find this thing, how
Mhm.
do you know it is there to be found in the first place?
Well, that's the dilemma, because again, if we go back to what I said earlier, because I cannot definitively prove it
Right.
that He's there, I cannot tell you that. This is the thing about faith,
Mm-hmm.
because if this thing is not there,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we are going to be, let me put it this way, and this is where I started my journey. You see, when you look at the church's teachings throughout history, there isn't much risk I am personally taking, because if you are right and we die, I won't even get to find out if you are right. You see, we just, it's over. It's over.
Mm-hmm.
But if I am right and we die,
Mm-hmm. So
you
this is
see now where the
Pascal's wager.
right.
Okay, so
Uh-huh.
there's a fundamental flaw in this Pascal's wager, which is what it's known as,
Mm-hmm.
and it is based on the assumption that God cares whether we believe in it or not.
Mm-hmm.
What if God doesn't care? Why would it? It's God. Why would it care if I believe in it or not? What's that got to do with anything? In fact, if God understands me at all or understands anything, and people claim that God knows my mind. I don't know that that's true, but that's the claim. Then God would understand why I don't believe in it, and I don't know why God would punish me for that. So I don't, this idea that God cares whether we believe or not is somewhat, moot. Now, as far as there being an afterlife, whether there is or isn't an afterlife also is independent of whether there's a God or not. If there is an afterlife, maybe there's no God. Then everybody's wrong, right? Because I mean, very few people would have that idea, but why not? I don't see why that couldn't be possible. So maybe there's an afterlife, but there's no God there. We're just all there confused, like, what's going on? What do we do now? I don't know. What can we do? So if there's an afterlife, but there isn't a God, then we were all kind of wrong, and we'll just wait and see. And is that really something uh, to hope for or bet on or put my time and energy and money into?
Okay. Now, to address why would God care if we believe or not, you see, we came from Him. He created us. So, and He made us His children. So, He's like that father who wants the
Mm,
best for us, you
mm.
see, the same
Yeah,
way
I,
you understand, yes?
yeah, but
Mhm.
you'll have to forgive me here. You keep saying things about God as if you know that that's true.
Okay, yeah, that's that's my point about God. That is the problem. I cannot
Hmm.
definitively prove that. It just comes from faith. I'm just giving
Right,
you my understanding, so
right.
that
So,
if
so, so that is the fundamental difference of the skeptic versus the non-skeptic. In many, well, there's many differences, but that's the fundamental one, is the difference of epistemology. I don't know why people. Well, I kind of have some ideas of why people believe, but why would you believe in something you can't verify?
yeah, now I to answer your question why I'm talking like I know, I'm just
Hmm.
giving you my job is to give you the proper understanding of how faith works, and then
Hmm.
you can make the choice, because that is how God has revealed Himself to
How do
us
you know
through
that?
the church. Huh?
How do you know that God's revealed itself to anybody?
That's the faith.
Well,
It's all faith.
you've already said that you can't confirm faith, so you don't know.
Yes,
You believe.
yes, it's belief
Well, why would
that
you
makes me
believe that
believe.
though? Why would you believe in belief? Why would you hold any position by faith rather than by facts?
Okay, because it's a choice you make.
Is
You
it?
see, yeah, it's a choice.
Can you choose? So, what does that mean to you? Can you choose what you believe or don't believe?
Yes, you can
Okay,
choose what you believe, what you don't believe.
this is God on my head. Can you believe
Uh-huh.
that?
You can choose to believe that.
No. Can you believe that?
No, I choose not to believe that.
Okay. Can you choose to believe it for the rest of the day?
Yes, I can.
Okay, go ahead. Do you believe it?
And
For the rest of today, this little toy that I have, this is God. For
uh
the rest of the day, you'll believe that. But then tomorrow, you won't believe that. So, can you do
okay,
that? Honestly.
I I can, but I choose not to.
Okay, so
Hmm?
you are unwilling to demonstrate that you have the ability to believe that this is God for the entire day. So I don't believe you that you can choose your belief because you're unwilling to demonstrate that you can do that. Make
Uh,
sense?
no. It doesn't make sense because
Because you
I
can't really
can
choose what you believe. You can't
no no
simply decide that I'm a lobster. You can't simply decide that I'm God and choose to believe that even for a minute, let alone a day.
no
Can
no
you?
no wait no let's slow
Can you
down a
do
little
that?
bit.
No, no. Can
I
you do
can.
it? Yes or no?
No, wait. I've already told you you can choose to believe what you
Okay.
want to believe.
Okay,
Now
then choose to
let us
believe.
back up. Let
Okay,
me
so
explain.
choose. No, well, you said that you can do it, so I want you to demonstrate that you can do it.
No, wait. Okay, let me show you why that doesn't work. Okay,
Okay, so you can't
I don't
demonstrate it,
have.
so it's not true. Okay, got it.
Okay, okay. Let me tell you why it is true, even though I cannot demonstrate it.
No,
Okay,
but no, if you cannot
let
demonstrate that it's true, then it isn't true.
let me explain.
Okay,
Okay,
go ahead.
you don't have to demonstrate something to show that it is true. For example,
That's
I
that's
can.
not correct. No, no.
Let me explain. Let me explain, and then you can explain. Okay. For example, I can tell you if I am trying. Let me find. I think you know where I'm headed. I can tell you. For example, I can. Okay, I can be able to. I hope this will not get you into trouble. I can be able to burn your car. I don't have to come and actually do it for you to know that I can do it. That is the least threatening example I can find. So I don't have to do something to prove that it can be done.
Well,
You see.
here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to claim that you could buy me a car, I would ask you for evidence that you can actually do this. I would want to see a check that you would receive for an amount of money that would be able to purchase a car, or your bank account receipts, or how much money you make a month. I would want verification of some level that you actually have the money. Then I'd want some sort of guarantee that you are in fact going to buy me a car, like a contract, something that's enforceable by law that would compel you to actually buy me the car as you suggested, because I'm all about verification through methodology that would guarantee the result that I'm looking for. And if you were unable and or unwilling to provide me with that sort of proof, then I don't believe that you are in fact going to do that. This is where scammers work all the time. They say, well, you owe the government X amount of money, and if you don't pay, we're going to come and arrest you. And instead of verifying that you actually owe the government money, you're scared, and so you believe the scam. And they say, okay, now go to the store and buy us some, gift cards, or give us some crypto money or whatever it is their scam is, all in an effort to try to get people's money. And this is how it works, because they're banking on the people don't use empirical methodology and just assume that somebody is being honest. If you say that we can choose what we believe, then demonstrate that you're able to choose to believe something for a momentary amount of time, like a day or an hour or whatever, that otherwise you wouldn't actually believe. If not, now this is going to be hard to demonstrate to each other, obviously, but internally in your own brain, you will know that you're being honest. Okay, so you're saying a claim. We humans, or maybe just you, maybe you're special and unlike me, I can't just decide that this is a cat. This is a stuffed lobster toy. I can't decide that it's a real lobster because it's not. But maybe if I can pretend that it's a cat, I can pretend that it's something else, but I don't really believe that. I can't just make myself, maybe if I strained my brain for like a year working on it, I could convince myself that it was a cat. I'm not sure that I could break my brain to do that, and I'm not sure why I would want to break my brain to do that. But I don't believe this idea that people come up with there, where they say you can choose what you believe or not. You can't decide that this isn't here. Once you see the cup, you have no choice but to believe that there's a cup here. It's glass, it says words on it. Other than that, you might have some questions about it, but you can't decide that this isn't there because you've seen it. And so this idea that we humans can choose what we believe, I find to be utterly false. And you, sir, among everyone else, has ever failed to produce any reliable methodology to demonstrate that we can, in fact, choose what we believe. If that was the case, uh, then you could indeed decide that I'm a rubber ducky for an hour and be like, well, this rubber ducky is talking to me, and that's really weird, but okay. And there'd be some test that we could do that would confirm that, yes, you actually believe that to be the case. And maybe your brain is flexible enough to do that. I don't know, but you don't know either. And your determination to not prove the matter to yourself or to me or anyone else suggests to me that this is actually a false idea that you hold. You cannot,
Okay.
people cannot choose what they believe. They either believe it for some number of psychological reasons or pressures, or they don't. They're compelled by reality to accept reality. You can't decide to, well, I don't know. Maybe, like I said, maybe you can decide that, to ignore reality. I don't know, but I just find
Oh,
this idea to be false.
okay. So I want to get your argument. We do not get to choose what we believe in.
Correct.
Then, okay, then, and then your argument is whatever we believe in is because of external factors that influence us to believe what we believe in,
External and internal factors.
and
Yes.
internal.
Yes.
Then, if that is true, then how can we have any hope of being able to understand and describe God in a way that you want me to describe him if he is truly the maker of everything we know and see, and he is truly infinite? Because if we are not smart enough to determine our own understanding and destiny, we are just being compelled by external and internal factors. How can you possibly expect me to describe God?
Well, I don't necessarily, well, whether you can or can't describe God is your burden to bear if you believe that God is real rather than just God is a belief. So if you're saying to me there really is a God, then you have the burden. If you're saying I just believe in God, okay, you just believe in God and there's no burden to bear, and we can go our merry way because I don't care about your faith. That's whatever, believe whatever. It doesn't matter to me because everyone believes whatever the bleep, and it's all blah 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 blah. But if you're making a burden of proof, if you're saying there is or isn't a God, then you acquire the burden to prove that God is. Now in this conversation, I'm assuming you have that burden, perhaps incorrectly so. I would then ask, do you make the statement God is real, or do you make the statement I believe God is real?
God is real.
Okay, so that's a
Mhm.
positive claim then. Then the burden is yours to bear on what God is, how that works, and how we can prove that God is in fact real. And the methodology that you've put forth is one of non methodology. There's no way to find out that God is anything at all because it is purely whatever you believe. So God is a hamburger, and I'm fine with that belief because I that's my faith. God is the cat Horus, is the great Shiva the destroyer, is Allah, is El Shaddai, is Yahweh, it's it's Lod, Lod, which is the lobster original deity outlined in the Lobsterist, which is the only real religion. But God could be anything or nothing. And now my position is God exists in your brain, definitely. Mine as well. We believe or we know certain ideas about God. That's for sure, no question about it. But but I think that that's all God is. It's just an idea in your mind heads. And the reason why we can't demonstrate that God is anything more is because it's not anything more. Now, it's still useful. it's like numbers. Numbers are kind of made up too, but they're very useful. We can use them for all sorts of things, but they're not really real. And so I view God as being maybe useful or maybe dangerous, depending on what you use God to do or don't do. But it's no more real than musical notes, letters, or numbers. It's kind of arbitrary and it's stuck in our head and not somewhere out here. So prayer won't do anything. Maybe it will make you feel a little bit better, but it won't actually change the world. There's not an afterlife more than likely, and there's no evil entities out there trying to devour our soul because there is no soul. So but that's my view of it because I'm using the empirical methodology. So
Mhm.
you wanted to talk to me because you thought my discussion on free will was incorrect. And now that you understand my epistemology a bit better, do you still have objections to my stance on the free will arguments?
No, the free will. What were you saying? I've forgotten a little bit. Sorry. The free will. I'm talking about the video. The video. In the video, you are saying
Yeah, I
the
believe it's this
question of
one. Let me
free will.
pull it up here. Hold on.
Yes.
Let's see. Yeah, no, I said a lot of stuff. I tend to do that.
Yeah.
Where are we? Free. There we go. Yeah, that was a short video. Wow, I only went 10 minutes in that video? Or 13 minutes? Oh, man, I'm slipping. Usually I was like there for like 10 hours. Okay, so I had 2 doors, and then I extended it to 4 doors, and I said it's actually worse than that. And you don't know which door to pick, and you don't really even know if there are doors to pick, and so you don't really have a choice to freely make something of that nature. And you had some objections with that. If I'm
Oh, it wasn't even this one. It was
No, it wasn't this one. Okay, well,
like
then
it,
what do I
but
know?
but okay, we can work with that one. You don't have to go to the
Yeah, I don't
specific
know which
one.
one you're
What
talking
were you
about
saying?
then. I don't know.
Okay,
I've talked
you
about so
what
many
what?
things, so yeah, that is one that I had.
Uh-huh.
Let me see if I can pull up the doors without the video. Yes, I've got the doors here. Come on, doors. AI generated. I asked ChatGPT to make me doors, and that's what it came up with. So, um,
Okay.
yeah, I was like, okay, that's good enough for me, Chat. Thanks. It's so to go off on a small tangent. It's so wackily amazing what the Chat GPT can do. It's kind of scary to some extent.
Mhm.
It's like, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
you did that. That's exactly what I wanted. Okay. So I had these doors, and I said something like, you've got one door that leads to doom, and the other one leads at least out of the room, if not to not doom. But you don't know which door does what, and so you're saying, well, you have a choice, and I'm like, well, but do you really? Because to me, a free choice would be that you have information. You know that it is true that one of the doors is an exit. And you would also know that it is true that one of the doors leads to a giant pit that you would fall in your demise. Although I don't know why you would step through that door, but regardless, you know this. And so then you have a choice, but you don't really, but it's a blind choice because it's a 50-50. You don't have enough information to make an informed decision. So it's only a free will choice if you have enough information to make a choice. Otherwise, it's an illusionary choice. So I said something of that nature. Um,
Oh, okay, okay. So, okay, your definition of free will is if we have all the necessary resources to make either choice, whether it's information, the capability of making the choice, and all that. Yes.
Right. You'd have to know that, you'd have to, well, behind door one is a car, behind door two is a boat, or well, behind both doors is a prize. We don't. It could be a boat, it could be a car, but you know for sure that there's a prize. So now you have a free choice of which door. Now, of course, it's arbitrary because you don't know what prize you're going to win, but you do know that something. It is more of a free choice then. But in order to have perfect free will choice, you have to have knowledge of what you are indeed choosing. So either we're going to have like, well, we decided, we're going to talk today, so well, we could have chosen not to do that, and but we both
Mhm.
decided we wanted to do it, so we made an actual choice based on knowledge that we had to perform this action. We could have chosen to not do that action, so that was a true free choice that we had to make.
Okay, but now the problem with that argument is then your stance has to be we free will is an illusion because we don't have all the knowledge to make all the choices we make on our daily basis. Is that
Uh,
what you're
I,
saying?
I I would say that depending on what you're talking about, because life is awfully complicated, that to some extent, if not fully, that free will is an illusion. Only in that you make the decision based on your knowledge, on what you know, but what you don't know will kill you. So
Mm-hmm.
I make the decision to sit on my chair, assuming that it will continually hold my weight. If and when it breaks on me, that's going to very much surprise and probably upset me if it doesn't injure me. So I make the best decision that I can based on the information I have. Now that information might be wrong or it could suddenly change. You're driving along and you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, two hands on the wheel, not talking on the cell phone, not talking to somebody else, not blurring the radio. You're focused on the road. You're looking, and everything. And all of a sudden, boom, because some other person was the idiot, right?
Yeah.
So you did everything right. It wasn't your choice that they came along and did their stupidity upon you, or some plane overhead uh, released its contents upon your vehicle, and all of a sudden it's raining suitcases and you're like, what the bleep? There's things that are out of our control, and so in that sense, it doesn't matter to some degree of what our choices are, because random bleep can happen. But I think that it's kind of illusionary, it's kind of true, but it's a little mix of both, and I don't know that it really matters whether free will is or isn't an illusion in that sense. But yeah, that would be kind of my view of it, I suppose, uh, broadly speaking.
Okay. Well, in your world, free will is an illusion. But
To
now,
some extent,
to some extent, okay.
as I
But what
said.
when it comes to spiritual matters, what if God gave you all the knowledge you need to
Mhm.
choose one door or the other?
Well, that would be great. Uh,
Mhm.
Having that knowledge would be interesting. If I had that sort of knowledge, I wouldn't know just what door to pick. I'd also know how to prove God to everybody, because it wouldn't be enough for me to pick the door. I'd have to be able to explain to everyone else what door to pick. So if God wants to reveal itself to me, it will be in a way that I can demonstrably demonstrate to everyone else in the world that God is actually real. And unless God does that, well, then I'm not going to believe in it, because a real God would reveal itself to all of humanity simultaneously in a way that we could all understand. And that would be, then I'd be like, okay, cool, that's God. All right, you got it. You win the title, you know. Now, I could
Okay.
be wrong. It could be just aliens messing with us, but I don't care. I'll call it God. Doesn't matter to me. you know.
Okay. Okay. Now, the problem with that is we'll go back to what you said in the beginning. We are creatures that are compelled with by factors, both
Mm-hmm.
external and internal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem with that is you are confirming how severely and woefully we are inferior. Okay, we we have problems, like we cannot claim to be the most intellectual and brilliant beings. So if we are that great, why would you dictate to God, who is supposed to be infinite and beyond any understanding, how he would reveal himself to us and
Mm-hmm.
his way of engaging with us? You see, now
Well,
you are using
the
your
that those claims about God are additional claims. God is X. And I'm like, I don't know
yes.
what God is. I don't know that God is anything other than an idea in my brain. I know that.
Okay. Okay.
But
Now
to say God
let
is
me
infinite, God is this or that or whatever, those are all claims that I can't verify. To
okay.
say, well,
Now
yeah, so
let me just address that first. Let us assume for 1 second that is how God is. Okay,
why?
because that is let us just assume for
Just for
1 second.
fun?
Yes, just for fun.
Just for
For
fun.
1 second.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. If God was that,
hmm
would we have any capability of dictating how he engages with us?
I think that we are allowed to have expectations that align with the reality as we understand it. And I think that, God, if it can do whatever the bleep it wants, well, then it can do whatever the bleep it wants and whatever. It could
Mhm.
turn me into a sandwich. Okay, cool. I'm a sandwich now, I guess. Well, that shows me, you know, turned Lot's wife into salt. Why did he do that? Okay, she looked backwards. Oh, goodness gracious. That was a big sin. Come on, turn your hand into salt. Give her a warning at least, like, well, I mean, come on, like,
Okay.
come on, man. She's just salt now. Like, is she? I guess she's dead. Like, does she know that she's salt? Lot's like, what the heck? Well, at least I got salt. I mean, I guess I can sell the salt. He's like scooping her in, like, I'm sorry, she looked backwards. Why God? Why salt? I don't know. But at least, but then from her perspective, one moment she's there, she's like, hey, my hometown, I miss my hometown. We're leaving. I just need one more view. And then she doesn't know anything because she's salt. So like then she dies, and then I guess she goes to the afterlife. I guess she's going to hell. Does she get to know that she's salt in hell? She's like, you turn my body into salt. And God's like, yep. Why? I'm here now. I'm in hell. What's the point of that? I don't know. It's just funny. I thought, yeah. But at any rate, God's weird, and could do whatever the bleep it wants. But I think it's reasonable to expect certain things of God based on the claims about that God. So if God is claimed to care about me personally, then I
Mhm.
expect it to behave in a way that aligns with the way that other people that care about me act. And so the way that people that care about me act is to interact with me. I email my brother, he emails me back. If I call him up, he answers the phone and we have a conversation. But no matter what I do, God is silent. And so I have no interaction with it in that way. And so at best, it would be what's called a parasocial relationship, which is where with like somebody famous or somebody on YouTube or whatever who, you watch their content, you enjoy their stuff, maybe you put a comment, they may or may not heart your comment or may not pay attention to the comments at all because they have a big follower. You know, they're like Weird Al Yankovic is pretty famous. I follow Weird Al Yankovic. I'm a fan of his music. I've met him a few times. I've met him 3 times. He has no idea who the bleep I am though, because he's met too many people. You know, you can only keep so many people in your brain. So he wouldn't know who the bleep I am. And that's fine. I understand that. And so it's a parasocial relationship, but at least I've met him and talked to him. But God is not something I can talk to in any and expect any response from. And so then I go, well, in regards to this claim that God wants a relationship with me, that has to be a false claim because God is not doing what other people do that do care about me. And that's an expectation I have that has been kind of forced upon me to have that expectation based on my interactions with other humans.
Okay. Now, okay. It is perfectly understandable where you are coming from with that. But now the problem with that is you you are judging God's interaction with you based on human interactions.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
And remember, just for fun, we are assuming God is what the church teaches. He's infinite, is
Mm-hmm.
above everything else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what if what you know is favorable and loving interactions from your fellow humans is not what is in actual sense the best interaction you can have with God? Because I will give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
We have an alcoholic who does not want to change.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this alcoholic will have friends who encourage him or her to drink their life away.
Mm-hmm.
He or
Not
she
very
will
good,
perceive, huh?
huh? I was
Yeah,
going to say
yeah,
not very good friends.
yeah, not very good friends. But he or she will perceive them as good friends because they encourage the behavior that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they enjoy. But
Mm-hmm.
now you come along and this is objectively bad for their life.
Mm-hmm.
And you try to tell them to stop, you try to get them to stop that alcoholism, which, depending on which
Mm-hmm.
stage it is in, can be painful,
Mm-hmm.
physically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
This person can perceive you maybe as a threat or as someone who doesn't love them because you are trying to get them to do something that is painful to them,
Mm-hmm.
but in the long run, it is going to benefit them.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yeah.
So this person will be judging you according to what they perceive as love from
Mm-hmm.
their friends who encourage him to
Mm-hmm.
drink their life away. But objectively speaking, you are the one who loves him more than those who are encouraging him
Mm-hmm.
to destroy his liver and everything with
Yeah.
alcoholism. So
Yeah.
what if our expectations are flawed
Hmm.
because we are judging God based on our quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote friends and our interactions with our friends, and God is trying to show us the proper way not only to interact with him but to live our lives to the fullest, assuming, remember, for fun, that
Right,
he is
right, right,
infinite and
right.
all
This
that.
is
Yeah.
one big thought experiment. Well, using the scenario that you built, that you constructed, if I may, I would say, well, that's an interesting idea. I mean, certainly, I would agree that that person is going to judge me as negative and all that. But the external people, the people watching this happen from the outside that are involved, that I don't know why, some reality show at this point, but whatever. What will happen when this drunk has friends that encourages him to drink and he gets one person who tries to get him off of the wagon. Let's find out. Tune in next week to see if he kills himself with alcohol. You know,
Yeah.
people would watch that show. This is a good pitch. This will be a great TV show, definitely. But vote off the people you don't like. I hate Claire. Yeah, sure, she's encouraging him to drink, but she's also a bitch, just a hater. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, that technique that he used where he tried to get him to stop drinking by poisoning his drink, that was really messed up of him. No. Get on somebody else. And then somebody new comes on. Anyways, but okay, let's take that scenario, which I've kind of poked a little fun at because we're having fun with it. But we say, okay, new scenario. We bring in the drunk. Okay, we bring in the friends that encourage the drunk. Then we leave a number of books on the table for him to read. And some of those books encourage him to drink, and some of those books say don't drink. And we hope that he reads one of those books. And we do nothing else. And let's see what happens. Oh, and I guess we'll have a couple people come by to try to promote their books every now and then. And those people will be like, yeah, that book, that's a really good book. You should read that book. And the other person's like, yeah, well, that book, that's not really a true book. That book is way better. That book is the one you should definitely read. And then we got one idiot. He comes in and he's like, listen, guys, see this? He pulls out this long list. And he's like, these are all the people that have been helped by my book. And we're like, yeah. And he's like, yeah. And then he walks away. But then we've got this guy and he's like, okay, listen, people. I know you've heard a lot about these other books. My book here, yes, I wrote it. But all of these other people, and here's their writings on my book as well. Here's their writings, and here they are. You can talk to them. And we have used a methodology of what's called science to determine that drinking is bad for you. And our findings are backed up by data and verifiable facts that you can decide that are true by reading the information. Go ahead and read all those books, but hopefully you'll understand that our book has true information. Now, we got to go, which one? Do we pick the one that, which one of these books should I read in the first place? Then we have to decide whether or not he'll actually read any of those books. And we're sitting there at home going like, just tell him the fact. Stop messing with this poor guy. Why are you doing this to him? Right.
Okay.
And that's how I kind of view our situation is we're all that drunk guy with tons of people coming in to tell us to read their books, but only one of these books is based on any methodology that we can even actually verify. And that book is the scientific method with also the logical method added on top, which maybe is already part of science. But essentially that book, at least we can make sure yes, it's true because we can verify it. And all the other books, well, they seem to be based on just faith.
Mm-hmm.
So is that really a good way for him? Maybe he'll stop drinking if he reads one of the books that tells him not to. But maybe he'll keep drinking because one of the other books told him that it's perfectly fine to drink himself to death because then he gets rewarded in heaven where he keeps being able to drink forever.
Okay, yeah. Now, in that scenario, let's add another one guy who comes along, and this is the last one we have.
This guy's gonna die for the drink. No, go on. No.
No. Before you even get to the dying of
yeah, I know. I'm spoiling. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Let's say this guy gave this drunk everything this person needed not to get drunk. But this drunk chose to get drunk. Now, I'm not talking about us. I think you know who I'm talking about. He chose to get drunk. And so by right and by justice, this this guy who came along is essentially giving this drunk what he wanted, what he chose.
Mm-hmm.
But out of mercy and love, he is trying to draw this drunk back to him and giving him all everything he needs to get back.
Mm-hmm.
But he has to work his way back. You
Mm-hmm.
see, it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to be easy because the drunk is the one who chose in the first place to be drunk,
Mm-hmm.
despite everything.
Yeah.
So he
But
has to work his way back.
yeah.
But even in working, as he is working his way back to this guy, he is
Mm-hmm.
still gaining something
Mm. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
his effort.
Um, it is an interesting scenario we've made, and I think it would be a good television show. But I'd have to say, let's step
Mhm.
back for a moment. We, the audience, maybe we enjoy this show, but there's a few critics out there that, they can be really annoying, those darn pesky skeptical critics. We'll just call
Mhm.
them skeptics for now. And they say, those producers of that show are evil. And here's why. They're allowing that guy to drink in the first place. They're providing him with the alcohol. They're giving him a place to live while he drinks. Those are evil people. And, well, yeah, they're providing him with the access to the materials in the first place. But it's even worse than that. The producers actually make the beer themselves. In fact, they made everything. They made the set, they made the show, they made the opportunity for him to get drunk, and they even gave him a personality that would allow him to become drunk in the first place somehow. And they just sat back and let it happen, and they never just they could have taken it away anytime. In fact, they could at night, they could put him to sleep and take away his desire to drink because they have that technology, but they just refuse to do that because, well, it's more entertaining this way. Wouldn't we view those producers as rather evil, nasty people?
Okay, but the same producers, because now we started with free choice,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
free will,
Right.
and you said for it to be truly free, we need
Mm-hmm.
all the information we need.
Right.
So the the producers gave that drunk all the information he needed, and for him
Mm.
to be truly free, they had to give him an opportunity to say no. Otherwise, it's not free. If
But
we
see
if
that
they take
that
away
that's the trick is they didn't though. They tricked
then
all of us. They tricked us because they gave him the not just the access to the alcohol, but they also put him the desire to drink alcohol in the first place. And they made the alcohol. So they loaded everything against him. They were setting it up so that he would fail. Also, they had somebody come in and trick the guy into drinking in the first place. That was kind of weird. But anyways, we won't deal with that.
okay,
But
okay.
you get what I'm saying is what the scenarios, of course, to step out of this thought experiment now, these scenarios highlight the interactions of the thought experiment that we're trying to get to of, is this really a free choice that he has? And if the
Yeah.
system is built to make him fail, no, it's not. If the system is not a reality show in its real life, then whether he chooses to drink or not, well, maybe it's not really a choice because he took one drink one day and his body was the sort of body that it compelled him to keep drinking.
Okay, okay.
Whereas, so
Let
he
me
didn't really have a choice there.
yeah.
He couldn't,
Before
he
we go
couldn't,
on,
so
yeah.
there's
Let,
chemical dependencies that people are built with that kind of weight the scales against them in certain circumstances. Now he didn't
okay.
have to drink, but he didn't, So there's a problem, a meta problem here that obviously goes beyond the thought experiment that we're running here.
Mhm.
But of course, the going back to the main problem at hand, without all these scenarios of what if, is back here where we're at, setting aside these ideas, these fun thought experiments, which has been enjoyable, is that the choice that me has is to believe in something without any facts, evidence, or sound arguments because it might give me something.
That that's hello.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's the deal. That's the deal because and that there's a reason as to why we went back to that guy with the thought
yeah.
experiment. There is a reason for that. Yeah. Before we move on from that, I hadn't even finished. We
Yeah,
have to take into account we've taken only one side. These producers
right,
set this guy
right.
up for failure, but we also
Yeah,
have to take into account they gave him everything he needed to stay sober.
yeah.
Okay, now let's move on now to the whole we believe because at first that's where the journey always has to begin because you might benefit something from it.
Mm, yeah,
And that is where everyone begins. And that is where
yeah,
even I began. And there is a
mm,
reason for that, which
yeah,
I think we might explore at a future date.
yeah.
But
Yeah, I think that is a good place to kind of plateau out our
oh,
talk. That yeah, because we've hit an hour, but yeah,
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 um,
okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Can I finish
yeah.
or
Go ahead.
we?
Yeah.
So the first place where you see in theology they talk about three kinds of fear that the church teaches, where pertaining to what is written in the Bible. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of all wisdom, but what it theology expounds it to be is there are three types of fear. The first one is called human or mundane fear, where people will fear God because they don't want God. And so they don't want him to be there because of reasons, many reasons. And so they will do anything and everything possible to make him not be there. They turn their backs on him, and therefore they do not want anything to do with God. The second kind of fear, and that is where now faith begins, is what is called servile fear. And that is where you make the choice, okay, depending on what I know so far and what has been taught, if you, that is where now we go back to the point I made. If you are right and I am wrong, because so far you don't argue there is an afterlife. If we die, I don't get
Yeah,
to find out. And if there
yeah.
is an afterlife, there is no God. So
Hmm.
there aren't any consequences. We just get confused and we wander around and figure out things as we go. But
Hmm.
if I am right and
Hmm.
you are wrong,
Hmm.
essentially you go to hell.
Hmm.
So if you look at the
And
situation you see,
I left out one possibility of that.
uh-huh,
Actually, I do have a video on this. Hold on, let me find it real quick. I'm gonna link it in the thing. Let me see. It's it. Here we go. It's called the definitive Pascal's wager, and I actually break down all the possible choices that Pascal's wager actually would really have for real.
uh-huh,
And I think let's see if I can pull up the chart here. Yes. Okay. So I'll just share this real quick. Then we'll have to wrap up here. So, okay. So the Pascal's wager, as I actually view it, would be something like this. Okay. So I explained in the video, but I'll explain it here. Okay. So it's about a 50-50 split. In other words, you might as well flip a coin. So there's a God, there's an afterlife, and God cares. So that's what G, A, and C means. So God,
uh-huh,
afterlife, cares. Belief is B, and don't believe is D. Okay?
Mhm.
So if you believe and God exists and there's an afterlife and God cares, then you're good. You're green. But if you didn't believe, then bad, red. Okay? If there's a God and afterlife but God doesn't care, then it doesn't matter if you believe or don't believe. If there's a God but there's no afterlife, but God does care if you believe in it, then it doesn't really matter if you believe or don't believe because there isn't an afterlife. So you don't really
Yeah.
benefit. If there's a God and no afterlife and God doesn't care, then it doesn't really matter because whatever. If there's no God but there is an afterlife, then it's green, doesn't matter. If there's no God and no afterlife, then everybody is screwed. And if there's a God and an afterlife, but it is the God of the skeptics, which is what S stands for, then you're punished for belief but rewarded for non-belief in God. So this adds up to about 50-50. So that's not a good wager to make. And so I don't think that Pascal's wager is even a wager because of this. It is nothing more than what if this is true? Well, here's the thing, and I heard about this. I got to explore it more, but this cult was made lately, and I can't remember every detail, but they had this idea about the AI and that AI was going to take over the world and all this. And part of their belief was this that there was an idea that once you had this idea, then you needed to work on destruction of AI, or else when AI knew about that idea, then it would destroy humanity. So just having the idea was so terrible that the moment you had that idea, now you have to destroy AI or else it will take over humanity. Now, what that idea is never said. It's never said what that idea is. It's just that if you ever have that idea, then you better destroy AI. So it was a perfect way to trap people into this cult and make them believe that there was an idea that if you had it, then this terrible thing would happen. When in fact, there is no idea like that. Or if there is, we can't know about it. Whether AI takes over or not, who knows? But it's a trap. It's a mental trap. It is not real. It's like step on a crack, break your mother's back. It's not true. You step on all the cracks you want, whether your mom's back breaks or not, is not connected to it. But if you believe, if you have a superstition, then you'll avoid the cracks. But that doesn't make avoiding the cracks a good idea. Anyways, all right. Thank you for coming,
Mhm.
Mark. It was very interesting. You don't have anything,
Okay.
any channel or anything like that to shout out or anything like that do you per se or
No,
Mark?
no, no, no,
No.
no.
Okay. No channel. Okay. Well, thank you, Mark.
Hello.
And yeah, yeah. Okay. So you didn't have anything to share for a link to or YouTube channel or Twitter or anything like that or X or whatever social media stuff. So thanks, Mark, for your time and energy, and thanks for everybody for watching. And let me know your thoughts on the conversation in the comments below. And until next time, be skeptical, and after next time, stay skeptical. And ending stream. Finn.